Morning, everyone. It is the July 6th Parking, Traffic, and Safety Committee meeting. We're getting off to a little bit of a late start because we had a mini celebration for Harold Whitehouse, who is 95 years old young and has dedicated his entire life in service to the city. So with that said, would you please call the roll?
Mary Lou McElwain.
Here.
Steve Pesci.
Here.
Mark Siracusa.
Here.
Harold Whitehouse.
Here.
Erica Wygonick.
Here.
Deputy Police Chief Mike Maloney. Fire Chief Bill McQuillan.
Here.
Public Works Director Peter Rice.
Here.
Stephanie Casella, Planning Department.
Here.
Chairman Andrew Bagley.
Here, and the alternate will be a full voting member today. And if you could please put up the financial report.
I didn't get the financial report. Gotta be something. That's all right. Everybody looks at me. I move the financial report to be presented, as presented, be accepted.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now we're going to go on to public comment. We have quite a few people that would like to speak today, so I'm going to ask everybody to keep their comments to 2 minutes so that everybody has a chance to speak. And whoever would like to go first, please just come up to the mic and state your name and address.
My name's Randall Leach. I live at 358 Thornton Street, 4 feet from that new roundabout. I want to talk about, my first item is going to be the trucks. Since it's been a no truck route for God knows when, the past 2 months we've had about 25 trucks go across that roundabout, which shakes my house. My house is 8 feet off the road. And for a truck to get there, they have to pass through 7 no truck signs. So I'm wondering what the city does about this. And I do know that if you come up from Kate Street and you're a semi, once you make that turn past Ritchie, you're committed. You can't, there's nothing you can do. You're stuck. The other thing I've noticed about trucks, I watched one come underneath the bridge, come up the hill, all the way to Dennis Street and go to Woodbury Street. So if that truck is coming from Islington Street and going to Dennis Street and doesn't stop in the neighborhood, that truck shouldn't be on that road, correct? Not just a semi-truck. I'm talking about box trucks, oil trucks. There was a Coke truck yesterday that came down through there. So these trucks are still using Bartlett Street to get through. They're not using the Route 1 bypass as they're supposed to be, and we're not getting any enforcement out there. We've had police out there for 13 days, and the only thing they've done is drive through. There's nobody that's been stopping. Nobody's been watching the speed going down Bartlett Street coming out of that traffic circle, which is insane. I've asked Eric if they put up speed traps on Thornton Street from the traffic circle to Woodbury, from the traffic circle to Islington on Bartlett Street, and from the traffic circle to Dennis Street on Bartlett Street. I've seen one up there, and it was moved from my pole to another pole down the road the other day. I was reading on the webpage, they were supposed to have a camera up to at least July. The camera went down 2.5 weeks ago. So I wonder what information we missed on there. Maybe the smoke show that was going in the middle of the traffic circle yesterday, if anybody happened to notice it. Oh yeah, filled the house up with smoke.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
Thanks.
My name is Ann Swan. I live at 311 Aldrich Road. I have 3 children. They're adults now. Last night, after the fireworks, I saw my youngest son, and I said, he saw the paper, and he said, "Are you going to the meeting?" And I said, "Yes," because a lot of times I can't go to night meetings. I work nights. And I said, "Do you remember when you almost got hit by a car on Aldridge Road, 311, not far from the end of the road, car coming down. He said, but it was my fault. I was in the road. Now I have to tell you, they're still going way too fast coming down the road. We have one speed bump. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I purposely make people aggravated and go only 20 miles an hour. At 30 miles an hour, your chances of being killed is 1 in 5. At 43 miles an hour, and they do go that fast once they pass my house because they've got to get to the end of the road and they've got to get to Hannaford, chance of survival is very low. At 10 miles per hour, a car goes 15 feet. At 20 miles per hour, a car goes 30 feet. At 30 miles an hour is what I often see. I've thought of throwing a ball on the road, but my husband said that might be kind of illegal. It goes 45 feet. If a child's hit at a car going that 45 feet, I want to know how many miles per hour his body is going to be dragged. It's some food for thought. I thought we were going to get a speed bump near our house. Hasn't happened. I still think we need one so that they slow down coming up, but that's not the problem. The problem is once they get around that corner and they come down the street, they speed up. So I would like you to take in consideration, please put another speed hump on our street for the safety of the 10 children on that side of the road. And my son was just chasing a little car that was motorized. But in 2007 on Broad Street, a child went in the road and was hit by a car. So that child was seriously injured, and I don't know the speed, but I think another speed bump would make people aware when they come down the street to slow down. I know you did 2 on Woodbury Avenue just lately because I go to Market Basket there. So please consider doing that on our street so people slow down. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Ann.
Does it matter? Oh, no, it doesn't.
Just as long as you're in front of a mic, it's okay.
Julie Higgins, I just want to add to Ann Swan's statement. I'm on 344 Aldrich, which is the green bungalow behind the laundromat, so at the end of Aldrich. And you're probably aware, but the street narrows there. So the fact that people hit a speed bump way down at the other end and then pick up speed, come around the corner and go down the hill to a narrowed street that often has cars parked on it, making it a one-way or one-lane street is a problem, and we really do need the speed bumps there.
Great. Thank you, Julie.
Just adding on to all of that, my name is Tricia Anderson. I live at 328 Aldrich with my 3 young children. My youngest is 4. I'm begging you to please add additional speed bumps at Aldrich Road, as I've begged for the last 3 or 4 years. You know, Aldrich, as many people know, is used as a cut-through street. You know, we're filled with walkers and runners and bikers. There are tons of children on that street. But unlike every other street connecting Middle and Islington, we have no stop signs. So drivers are using our road as a cut-through, and it allows them to go the fastest. And our street is not designed to drive fast. As Julie just pointed out, I live next to Julie. It's very narrow where we live, where my 3 children live. My house is also 10 feet from the road, where my children are playing. And it's very, very dangerous. It's also, there's a big hill in the middle of the street, and again, lots of houses close to the street, and lots of pedestrians and bike riders. As you know, you put a speed bump at the end of the street. We're really, really appreciative of that, and that's wonderful for my neighbors at the end of the street. We were promised 2 additional speed humps. We were actually, a bunch of us spoke at a meeting last August, and we were promised that, and I have the minutes here, that we were promised it would be put in the capital improvement plan. It is in the capital improvement plan to have 2 additional speed bumps put on Aldrich Road. My question is when? I don't know when that's happening. I would like information on the timeline. To me, this feels urgent. Again, I have 3 young children. I feel like this is a dangerous situation, and I worry about their safety and the safety of the other children, and I do not want anything tragic to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Hart. I live at 213 Aldrich Road. I've been to this meeting to address this issue several times. Back in 1988, my son, who's now 43, was out in front with Chuck Schwartzmiller with Motorcycle Police. We were addressing the issue then. So 36, 37 years later, it's still a concern. I live sort of on the knoll where they either head for Middle Street, pick up the speed, hit those bumps. Some slow down, some don't, or people that are going the other direction. So I think we've addressed this issues 5, 6, 7 times of the residents of Aldrich. So we've talked about three-way stop signs. We've talked about the speed bumps, which we did get those at the end of Boss. But again, a concern of the neighborhood, and especially with all the development on the west end, I think the traffic has just gotten busier. And I think, as Randy said too, the increasing number of tractor trailers and box trucks that are headed to Hannaford and doing other deliveries. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Hi, Rob Capone, 250 Elwyn Road in Portsmouth. Calling just because I live on Elwyn Road, which is admittedly one side is the urban forestry, the other side is sparsely populated houses. But the big thing is that Elwyn Road is used, especially in the summertime, by seasonal travelers going down to the beach or Route 1A. We've been at this location about 4 years. In that time, we've had 2 accidents that have bad accidents. One was a rollover where they actually hit the telephone pole in front of our house, and the telephone pole had to be replaced. The front wheel was torn off on one wheel. Then there was that happened in April of 22nd of last year, and then June 8th of this year, we had another accident that was barely a head-on collision. I think people generally drive too fast on it. A lot of them, again, because they're seasonal, and just like on Aldrich, we have 2 short sections that are straight, so they get up to speed. I know that there's plans to put, I don't know where exactly they are, to put sidewalks on the road, and that's going to include crosswalks at both Taft and at Harding. And my concern is in both of those cases, the visibility coming from the other direction is definitely very limited. And I'm concerned, number one, about what the plans could potentially be. Is there a speed hump in place as part of the design? I couldn't find anything in particular in details about that. But also I know that there has been some enforcement. You can look at the police logs to see that, okay, they are stopping at regular intervals. But I'm wondering if maybe we can have something, at least seasonally, to help encourage the people that are coming here from outside the town to just realize, okay, yes, it is actually marked as 25. I know in particular in front of our house, it's definitely a blind spot as you're coming up over a knoll. When we go into the urban forestry, admittedly, we cut in through. There's a good chance that you're not going to see us if you're going 40. So, admittedly, there's not anywhere near as much in the way of children living on the road, but there are a lot of people that use it for biking and walking all throughout the day, which I think and sometimes is crazy. But again, we'll have to see what the redesign covers. But I just would like to sort of give another heads up to say, hey, what can we do to help sort of reduce, encourage people to reduce speed, either with reduction in lane width or maybe more enforcement. I don't know, but just kind of make it known that this is a problem. Thanks. Great. Thank you, Robert.
Felt like a long time to get here from the back row. My name's Claire Prout. I live at 108 Sparhawk Street. I spoke at the last meeting because I didn't originally know about the mini roundabout that was coming in. I did speak with Eric, and he did tell me it was somewhat neighborhood driven, but I get the newspaper, I get the notices from the city. Certainly I know my neighbors have been there a long time, didn't know about it and came upon it by surprise. Since then, I've listened to what happened at the meeting, I watched a video, and I'm honestly a little unclear. It sounded like the neighbors that were asking for something were concerned about people not stopping at the stop signs, and yet in the last meeting it sounded like one of the positives was that it was keeping traffic moving. So I'm a little bit questioning what originally was the purpose and where is the victory in it. I had shared that I'm not comfortable taking a left coming out of my neighborhood I go down Clinton to take that left. it's hard to see with Botany Bay, the old Botany Bay being there. I tried going to Dennett, and then I'm looking at the Holiday Inn and the traffic coming off, and I couldn't take that left. And I wasn't comfortable with the traffic circle. Somebody did say it's really not about feelings. Somebody who got up after me to say it's not about feelings. And I thought, so you're saying it's not about my feeling safe? It felt awkward, but someone else said there are plenty of avenues out of the neighborhood. And I found one. So I'm just going to say that. I'm avoiding the traffic circle now because I found that if I go up Stark Street and take the left on Pine, I'm out in a way that traffic is still going, but I can see both ways. I had shared that when the four-way stop came in, I felt safe. I don't know if people are having a different experience, but I'm a sort of a driver that I'll stop till I know that people are stopped. And then I'm feeling like I'm happy to go. Then when Eric shared that really the numbers didn't warrant a four-way stop, that kind of stopped me in my tracks because I thought there's been a lot of research, there's a lot of video, there's a lot of conversation, but somehow the four-way stop got put in only to be told that isn't really, the numbers don't warrant it. So that's surprising. I know somebody said maybe we need lessons on how to go around the Rotary. I can go around the big Rotary, been going around the big Rotary for over 40 years. I don't need lessons in the Rotary. The Rotary just seems small. When I saw the fire trucks, they went Thornton, straight through Thornton, and they went Bartlett. I didn't see the fire trucks go Thornton to take the left. I can do the other things as well. It's that weird little left that's hard to do, and I don't have a huge vehicle. So I'm feeling myself safe, again, because I have a way out of the neighborhood. I don't know what the decision is going to be, but it seems like this committee needs to know what was the purpose in the first place, because that seems confusing, and it seems as if there needs to be, before something gets put in place, an awareness of what are the guidelines for a four-way stop versus a two-way stop. So if I could have the four-way back, I'd go for that, but if I can't, then I'll just see how the new little mini Rotary looks. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Hi, I'm Deborah Mayer. I own a house at 312 Aldrich where my special needs adult son lives. So in addition to the numerous homes that have young children, I have an adult who lives there who his traffic safety understanding is like a child. So there are lots of needs on that street. And I've also noticed that a lot of people are parking on the street, and it's an attempt to calm the traffic and make it go slower, and it has absolutely not worked. And cars are going fast, and it's even more dangerous, in my opinion, because there's a very narrow passage, and people are going really fast through there. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Hi, my name is John Ross. I'm another voice from Aldrich Road. I live right on the intersection of Sewell, which if you're coming from Middle, there's a curve and then a long straightaway down to Islington. I'm a fan of motorsports. I've done some performance driving. I know that there's a certain amount of exhilaration of coming out of a curve and into a long straight, but that's a residential area and there's really no place for motorsports there. A speed bump maybe would help, but what my observation of people going across a speed bump on Aldrich is they slow down to maybe 20, which is the speed limit, and then they just hit the gas once they've crossed it. I don't know. Maybe a stop sign coming down the hill right at Sewell at the curve would slow traffic down. Perhaps that's a ridiculous idea, but it's the only thing I can think of. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, John.
Jerry Smith at 306 Aldrich. I spent 41 years on South Street in a very similar situation, a small hill with uncontrollable speed, and it's still happening today. We moved to Aldrich in a very similar, in the middle of that same hill. I don't know what the solutions are, but a speed hump helps, as John just said, for 100 feet on either side of it. I could recommend multiple speed humps so a car never has a chance to accelerate. But in the bigger picture, talking about the roundabout and what's happening on Woodbury, in my mind anyway, consistency would be much better. So people driving through the city know when there's a hazardous situation, it's either going to be an intersection hump that's color-coded, so no matter where you are in the city, you see that coming up, you know what it is, versus whatever's going on Woodbury, is that coming out in the wintertime so we can pick up speed again? Just my observations. The speed is a problem on Aldrich. When I first moved in there 2 years ago, I was told that, and I said, after coming off of South Street, I said, they don't know what the problem is. Well, I've seen it now. And my wife is blind. She will not cross Aldrich except down near the speed hump and at the corner by the laundromat. It's just too risky for her. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Good morning, everyone. Kelly Shaw, Banfield Road. Couple things today, and I agree with the Aldrich. I went down there because I was just curious of what was going on, and I did the traffic roundabout. And I concur, they need like 2 more speed humps because then they speed up. And that little roundabout isn't like the one at Foy's Corner. This one is just dangerous, not good. Anyway, speaking about 375 Banfield Road, the junkyard next to St. Pat's, and the tractor trailers, and Bob's Trucks. We have the 2 speed bumps, which are fabulous. However, we should not have grooves in the road. We have grooves like you would on Route 33 coming onto Ocean. It is dangerous still. They speed up, and I'm not just talking about Bob's Trucks. We got FW Web. I don't know if it's a Waze app, if it's a GPS or what, but everybody's cutting through. I think what we need is better signage on Ocean Road both ways that indicates no trucks, local traffic only. I understand it's industrial on Heritage and Constitution. However, they're supposed to go on Ocean to Route 1 and then back down on Heritage and Constitution. It's getting worse and not better, and the tractor trailers there's at least minimum a half a dozen going by because it's summer now and I'm outside all the time and I'm working and I can hear them, and then I look to see which one it is. National Truck Rental, and a lot of the guys from West Road cut through for some reason on Banfield Road still because they want to avoid the lights. I don't know, or if they can take a right out the old St. James Church on Route 1. I don't know what or go out Beverly Hill. I don't know what the problem is. And it ties in with, and it says here in the ordinance that Banfield Road, it shall be unlawful for any truck with a box, body, or platform over 12 feet in length to use the following streets. Exception 7.70. One, it's Banfield. And the exception is the operation of trucks upon any street where necessary to conduct business at the destination point. Accessible only through where the truck traffic is prohibited as set forth. However, there's nothing to prohibit them going to Route 1. I think we need better signage on Heritage, better signage on Constitution, to go out to Route 1. I can't do the click and fix right now. My phone is wonky or something. But the sign is broken on Ocean to Banfield, so there's no big sign up there. It's been knocked down so many times by the tractor trailers and the trucks. There's nothing out there. Not that it helped because they're already turning in to Banfield. But they go over the first speed hump. They speed up to 45 on the second hump. The reason I know this is because I have the sign right that tells me the speed limit right in front of my house, so I look up and I can view it. Then they speed up to the stop sign, bang a right on Heritage. my big concern too is at 375 Banfield, where the potentially, because they say they have the permits now, that they're going to be putting in an Amazon warehouse. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but there's going to be multiple trips of tractor trailers next to St. Pat's School, and I can just vision it, them coming down Banfield Road and
Okay,
just
Kelly,
ruin it. I understand that, but I'm
And can I
important
just ask
too.
a quick clarification question?
Okay.
When you said the grooves, did you mean the muffler grooves? When people go over too
It's
fast
narrow.
or something different?
Yeah, it's narrow. I mean, the grooves are deep.
Okay.
If
all
you,
right.
if you want to take a loop going both ways, the grooves are very, very deep, and they shouldn't be.
And thanks for pointing out the sign, but we do want to get to all the speakers.
I understand that, but I need to finish about Banfield Road and 375. That turn right there, and I understand there might be straightening it out, but there's supposed to be 1,000-foot something. I'm not technical in that, but I just don't see how it's going to be safe for any tractor trailers to be on Banfield Road. At that end, I understand part of it's industrial, but it's a safety hazard. It's a major safety hazard, and my concern is they're going to be coming down our residential area with all the work that we've put in there. I mean, because we've put
Right, thank
a
you,
lot
Kelly.
of work into Banfield Road, and it's taken over 8 years. So I would like to see something done. Thank you. And it's right in the plans.
Feel free to come up to a mic.
My name is Liza Hewitt. I live at 726 Middle Road. My concern today is about the safety at the intersection of Congress Street, Maplewood, Islington, and Middle. I spoke at the last meeting. I asked someone to take a look at this. It's gotten worse. We now have heat towers up at Jumpin' Jays. We have market umbrellas that are sometimes tilted on the side, further impeding the view. I've heard Mary Lou McElwain speak about that intersection for a year, and nothing's been done. Now we've made it worse. This is not about outdoor dining, and I want to make that clear. I've got no problem with outdoor dining if done correctly and done safely. This is a safety issue. You are the Parking, Traffic, and Safety Committee, and I think that somebody needs to look at this. This is what I see as I'm coming up to that corner. You tell me, can you see a person behind that screen? I can't. And it happens every time I go through. And I'd like you all to look at this picture. The ordinance says no parking within 20 feet of an intersection. I realize that cars are not parked within 20 feet of that intersection, but you've got Jersey barriers, you've got screening, you've got bushes. That to me is worse than a car. And this is your ordinance. And I don't understand why it's blocked like that. My question is, has anybody spoken to Mr. McSherry and Mr. McFlurry, or Mr. Flurry, or whatever his name is? They seem like reasonable people when I've read about them in the newspaper. Do they understand the risk they're putting the community at by having what they have in that travel lane going into that intersection? I have to believe that if any of you would approach them, they'd be happy to do something so that people can see around those corners and into that intersection. You have experts on this committee. I'd like to hear from Mr. Eby and Ms. Wygonik, who are traffic engineers, about their thoughts on the safety going into that intersection. I'd like to hear from Mr. Rice. I'd like to hear from Police Chief Maloney about the safety. This can't wait until next month. So putting it on your agenda for next month, it's going to be August. We can't wait. It can't wait till October. You've got to address this now. I hope you'll address it during the miscellaneous time at the end of the meeting. And then to top it off, Jumpin' Jays isn't even being used, like almost ever. And you've got that whole intersection tied up with unsafe situation. So please, please, please address it. Woodbury Avenue.
Very quickly, because
Yes,
if we
I
want to
will
have
do it.
miscellaneous time, we have to get through.
No, I understand. Woodbury Avenue, the speed humps, I'm not opposed to speed humps. I go slow anyway. On Tuesday evening, because of where the sign is located at the speed hump versus before the speed hump warning of it, there was a truck that stopped to get over the speed hump. There's a little Honda Civic behind it, and I was behind the Honda Civic. Honda Civic came upon the truck because they did not know there was a speed hump there because the sign is right at the speed hump versus in front of it. He had to take a sharp right to avoid crashing into the back of the truck. His car ran up over the curb. It had a head-on collision with the sign. He backed out. His tire was popped. His car lights were blinking, so it must have been some electrical problem. You need to put those signs well in advance of that speed hump because it's not safe for cars to just come upon the speed hump. That's it. Thank you very
Liza.
much. And I appreciate you addressing that intersection.
Morning. Peter Harris, 249 Islington Street. I've been a resident in Portsmouth for in excess of 30 years. During this time, I've also been in the insurance industry, in the property and casualty industry, working with insurance carriers with data and analytics information. And my one question to them all the time, as we worked with them and helped them with their concerns, was what keeps them up at night? What keeps you all up at night managing parking, traffic, and safety for the city of Portsmouth? The intersection at Jumping Jays, Congress, Maplewood, Islington, and Middle Road, and the pictures that you got from Liza before me, it's a dangerous intersection with the setup that's there today. The loss of a lane on the busiest intersection in the downtown area, it's a hazard. And the city has an obligation for providing a safe environment, and this is no longer safe by taking up the lane and blocking the sight lines. Liza cited the ordinance for a parking space being 20 foot back from the corner. The height, though, of the setup of the Jersey barriers and the planters and so on is higher than a normal height of a car, significantly higher. Sight lines are blocked for pedestrians as well as for drivers. I guess one thing I'd like to know is, has the city contacted their insurer, Primex, to determine any concerns that they have? I also would like to hear, as Liza had asked, for city engineers to publicly provide their concerns, as opposed to what we heard was the city manager saying staff doesn't recommend. I'd like to know why staff doesn't recommend this. It should be made public and provided as a reason and for the council to weigh in on when this is voted on. It really shouldn't be permitted to be set up this way, and definitely not next year. It's not about outdoor dining, it's about safety. And safety is a big concern that you all have, and I believe it was one of your concerns when you ran for city council, Andrew.
Just quickly now, please.
Okay. But anyway, so what are the liability issues? I believe restaurants have to carry $1 million of liability. I'm not sure, but that's my understanding. An accident could be loss of life. $1 million of liability might not even cover it, and your insurer, if they're not on board, or the restaurant's insurer, because it's neglecting the safety, might not cover. And that, I think, from the city's perspective, should be a big concern about how that's set up.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Should be addressed.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Roy Helsel. I live on 777 Middle Road. I think they ought to put a sign at the entrance of all the major roads that says 25 miles an hour in this town. I live on that road, and I pull out of my condo association, and 100 yards up there. The cars are coming from down Route 33 or down the road, and they're doing 35, 40, and 45 miles an hour. And the signs have 25, and you could see where the automatic signs that tells them, and I walk that every day around there, and they got a crosswalk, of course. So that's the only way that you go safely across the street. But when I pull out, by the time I get straightened out and go down to do 25 miles an hour, I got them cars right on my rear end. And I've had cars pass me on that double yellow line. So they should have since you have all this automation in town, when the cops get, I know this is a tourist town, and I know we have a lot of outsiders, but when they give them a warning ticket, why don't they put it in the computer so that they can look up this guy's name and see how many warning tickets he has? When he gets a couple of them, give him a ticket. That's all I have to say. And as soon as those cops leave from in front of our place, they're all doing 25. As soon as they leave, 5 minutes later, they must be on their telephones telling everybody that the cops are gone, because they start doing 35 and 40 miles an hour again.
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
I have one quick thing, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Kelly. There is,
No,
please,
it's just something
you
else.
have to let everybody else speak. You had 5 minutes. Everybody's been limited to 2.
I didn't realize there was someone else.
And we also have some online, because we have to conduct the meeting afterwards and then turn the room over.
Good morning, Chairman, committee members, Chief, also Director Rice. Glad to see you feeling much better. I just was, obviously I'm here to talk about Aldridge Road. This has been ongoing situations. It just gets more serious and serious. And, as you see this morning, we have a lot of residents and taxpayers that came to voice their concerns. It's, even gotten a little worse, during the summertime for sure. There's more traffic, but with the closure or the partial closure of Islington Street, we're starting to get a lot of traffic coming through, cutting through, Aldridge Road to get up to Middle, to get downtown, because it is a little bit of a challenge. And I know that project's going to go on for, a reasonable amount of time, probably for this summer, and who knows, maybe next summer. I know that the stop signs have been considered for traffic calming. That got taken off the table for a couple different reasons that Director Eby had previously mentioned. But, one thing that has been effective, and I've seen it around town, is the speed bumps. Recently, you've installed speed bumps on Woodbury, and those are very, very effective, and they're doing a very nice job. And I know that we had expectations of having speed bumps put in there during this past spring. That's how the residents thought it was going to happen from last year. But it didn't happen, and I understand there's a lot to consider when you're putting in speed bumps made of pavement. But I think that the next action, immediate action, needs to be that you put temporary ones in. The temporary ones would be more, highly effective, and they would be effective as far as traffic calming and getting the vehicles to slow down on Aldridge Road. No doubt there needs to be a set of 2 of them to go the distance of the whole road, and I think it would make it a lot better situation. So my request to you is to get the temporaries put in as soon as possible, and we could, look at the permanent ones down the road. If that has to be in the CIP, because I know it got bumped from the CIP for next year. But that doesn't do us any good right now, because we're all dealing with it, and it is a serious situation, especially with the folks behind me that have children and challenged adults and people that are blind that have to walk that street. And with the increase of the traffic that we've had on that street, not only pedestrian traffic, but we have a lot of people that have moved into the Chinburg apartments over across from Hannaford's. We've also got the West End. right? And the only other, the only other request I have is to reestablish Zone 5 patrol for the police department. I'm sorry, Deputy Chief Mike Maloney's not here today, but if you could put it on the record that we want to request reimplementation of Zone 5 patrol that Chief Mara had disbanded back 3 years ago. We need another patrol. Thank you very much for your time.
Is there anybody else in the room? I believe we have a couple on Zoom.
Yes. Nancy Johnson?
Go ahead, Nancy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. We've attended all meetings on the Bartlett-Thornton roundabout. We preferred the four-way stop, second choice a speed bump or cushion. Of the many scary situations we've run into, we live on Clinton Street, 81 Clinton Street. Yesterday at 10:30 in the morning, we were driving from Woodbury Avenue down Thornton, planning to turn right onto Bartlett. Unexpectedly, a car moving quite rapidly whipped around the corner from Bartlett Street and turned onto Thornton Street without going around the circle, cut the corner, and was coming directly at our car in our lane. No time for evasive action. How we were spared a head-on collision, we do not know. The circle is so small that if anything goes wrong, it goes wrong fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Anna Lejean Guth?
Anna, go ahead.
I guess it automatically dropped it.
Hi, my name is Anna Leon Goose. I live on 147 Bartlett Street. I speak in favor of the circle. I think it works really well, and we use it all the time. And I take my left turn on it all the time because it's still faster than going straight. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Teresa Hill.
Go ahead, Teresa.
Any more?
No.
Oh. Hello? Hi. Teresa Hill, 340 Thornton Street, with the mini roundabout in my front yard. I wasn't planning on speaking today. I sent a long email to the committee. My only question was looking at the speed that was recorded in the intersection being 85% of the folks going through were under the speed limit of 20, if I read Eric's graph correctly, which still means 15% or not. But I have noticed that the traffic approaching the roundabout, particularly coming up Bartlett, but from all directions, is moving much faster on the approach. And when they leave the roundabout, 3 seconds later, is much faster. And I'm wondering, was there any measuring of the speed of the cars in the intersection when we had the four-way stop? I know that some people did not stop, some people rolled through, but I can't imagine that that speed was significantly higher. I've also spoken to a bunch of pedestrians who feel pretty unsafe, knowing that cars are not stopping and that they don't feel like they're in view. And I know you've talked about putting in flashing lights, and it just seems like more stuff on top of stuff when the four-way stops were working pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Martin, Ryan, and maybe one other.
Yeah. Martin?
Go ahead, Martin. You may have to take yourself off mute.
He's unmuted.
Martin, you should be unmuted. There might be a button that you have to click on in order for you to start speaking on your computer. Is there another one?
Yeah.
Waiting to speak.
Bill Blum.
Martin, we're going to jump to the other person while you resolve your technical difficulties. Go ahead, Bill.
Good morning, everybody. Bill Blum, 236 Kate Street. Just like to briefly talk about the speed humps on Woodbury. As a cyclist, I love how they're actually split in the middle, so I can save my energy and not waste it while I'm traveling through them. And also, as a cyclist, I do love the mini roundabout for ease of use. There's been a lot of discussions about cars and trucks. But as the cycling community is growing and thriving in this town, I really appreciate the fact that the mini roundabout is definitely, I feel safe going through it. And I also want to point out that the city has both responsibility to draft laws and pass them to help change things in the city and also enforce them. And I feel that the laws that in the signs that were put up do identify the fact that there are laws saying that there's no trucks allowed in that neighborhood, and there has been enforcement in the past with the police department there. And also, I think that the diamond in the rough here is that roundabout in of itself basically does not allow tractor trailers to go over it with ease. So eventually, the tractor trailers will not really enjoy going down that road to get down to Ricci Lumber, and they'll choose alternate routes because of the difficulty. So thank you very much to everyone involved in this project to get it into the test phase, and I commend the city for its continued action to change.
Thank you, Bill. And we'll try Martin one more time if possible.
Martin?
Martin, go ahead. All right. Martin, unfortunately, we can't hear you. I think you can send an email in to me. I think you have my address with your comments, and we'll take them in advisement at the next meeting. With that, I'm going to close the public comment, and I'm going to invite Councillor Kate Cook, who I'm not sure has enough time to actually speak with us today, but if she does, I would love to have her speak with us on overnight parking in Portsmouth. So just to kind of set the stage a little bit, we looked back in the fall. Portsmouth seems to have become a destination for overnight campers, and there's a lot more on our streets, parking on our streets and neighborhoods than there used to be in the past, and that seems to be pandemic and social media driven. So, Councillor Cook, if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Bagley, and thank you for allowing me to come speak to you all today. I started addressing this issue behind the scenes as soon as I heard that Parking, Traffic, and State Safety was dealing with it, mostly because I had several neighbors who were very concerned about van parking and had reached out to me very specifically. And I have personal experience because I am an RV owner, and so I had some concerns myself about how this would be addressed. And noting my own personal experiences in camping and traveling across the U.S., which I've done pretty extensively. I want to preface my comments by letting you all know that it's not easy to be an RV owner in Portsmouth. There are not a lot of places to park an RV in Portsmouth, at least not easily. I store my RV in Brentwood because it's the closest place I can find to store my RV. And as a result, it makes it very challenging if I choose to use it in the summer. And one of the few things that I can do is bring it up here and park it overnight before I head out on a trip. Because if I am in Brentwood and I have it stored in Brentwood in a storage space, it's very, very difficult to leave from that space to travel. So I know that I'm not the only person in Portsmouth that owns an RV that parks it on the street periodically overnight when they're planning to travel. I don't sleep in my RV on the street, but I have seen personally those challenges. So when I started looking at this issue more seriously, I realized that there are really 4 different groups of people that we have to address in dealing with van parking on the streets. The first, and I think this committee had heard about this and the last time it was discussed is the group of individuals who actually own vans and are living in them and parking on our streets. That is a very particular challenge. I want to let everyone here know that it's not easy to live in an RV in New Hampshire in the winter. You can't easily heat them if you're parking on the street because you don't have a place to plug it in. Solar panels will not provide you enough power to provide enough heat overnight. So people who are choosing to live in their vans on the street don't have an easy go of it. It's also very difficult in Portsmouth and the surrounding area to find a place to have a dumping station to dump sewage from your RV. And that's a critical need when you have an RV and you have a restroom on board. There is not an easy access dumping station in the entire area in the course of the winter. The places where you go to use a dumping station are usually RV parks, and our local RV parks are closed during the winter time and usually open up in mid-May, or seasonal, or only open until mid-October. So individuals who are living in an RV don't have a clear space to dump their sewage over the course of the winter. So that is also extremely challenging if you're living in an RV on the streets. So this complicates matters for us in dealing with individuals who have chosen to live in a van on the streets, probably because of lack of affordable housing, and they found this is an affordable alternative because they do have some specific challenges in ways that they can address these real concerns over the course of the winter. So I started talking to the city about this, to the legal department, specifically with Attorney Jane Farini. I found that the city actually does have a place where we have dumping capabilities. So I've been working to find ways to address that at a city level, because the last thing that we want is people parking on the streets who are dumping somehow into our sewer system, our stormwater system. And that has been a concern expressed to me by some residents. So I'm hoping that we can find an easy solution to that, either by opening up our capabilities one way or another to individuals who need to have dumping capability. And usually we charge fees for that. That's what campgrounds do as well. It's usually $15 to $25 at a campground to come in and use that service. But to prevent having any challenges around ending up with sewer in our stormwater system. But then with that group also, we have to find a reasonable place for them to park if we don't want them parking on our streets in front of our middle school or the library for an extended period of time. Just so you know, they also park on Mechanic Street and they also park on Pierce Island. So there's kind of a rotation.
Councilor Cook, I want to speed you up just because I'm cognizant of the time and I know that you have an appointment to get to. Before I open up to questions for the committee, I do want to also highlight Councilor Cook's husband is a cardiac surgeon at Exeter Hospital.
Cardiologist.
And so during COVID, he had to live in the camper van in the early days to, for safety separation standpoint. So she has more experience than the average citizen with the different challenges that RVs have. Or maybe the people on this committee that don't have RVs is a better way to put that. So if anybody in the committee has questions for Councilor Cook as we continue to look into this issue. Mary Lou?
Well, I know this is a complicated issue, but because social media has picked up on this since 2020, Portsmouth is really inundated with all different levels of campers. And I know that there is an employee in the fire department who is parking, who has a van, parks on the street. That's one thing. It's another thing to see vans from Arizona, Quebec, North Dakota, who are parking in a bike ride this morning. I saw them just Pierce Island, Fort Tree Island. And so it is a safety concern, but also it's a health concern. And I did email you about that. I'm wondering, what are they presently doing? Because Walmart used to allow vans, campers to park there. They do in Brentwood, but they don't in Portsmouth. So I know this is complicated, and I think it probably needs a longer discussion than the time that we have this morning, but I appreciate what you're doing because it's big. It's a big issue.
Thank you, Mary Lou. And that might, because we've had so much public comment, because we have a full agenda, I think Councillor Cook for coming in and kicking off the discussion. I don't think we have a solution yet, but I do want everybody to know we're looking at all available possibilities to address everybody's concerns, because there's varied opinions in the community about what the best path forward is.
And I should say that we're also looking at the Walmart situation that is intended as emergency overnight parking at Walmart, and that's the case for all Walmarts across the country. You're never supposed to stay more than one night. So it's supposed to be for RV campers who need a place to stop and don't have another place to stop. That would be very prevalent in New England because there are not a lot of campgrounds, and a lot of them are full very frequently. And so that is a particular challenge. I know we experienced that during COVID, where my husband was living in the RV for 3 months. He had nowhere to camp, so he parked on somebody's driveway pad because they let him in Exeter. He had nowhere else to go, so he had no running water or access that way. He had to use the showers at work at the hospital. So, and that was the case for 2 months. So I know what those challenges are for the people who are on the streets because we've experienced it and looked for a campground and there was nowhere to go. So we have to be thinking about a multifaceted approach, a place where people can park, emergency parking for people who are stopping over. But what I wanted to ask this committee to do was to consider doing a study of the number of vans who are parking on Parrott Avenue, do a short study here in the summer, even 2 to 3 weeks, and also potentially at Pierce Island. So if we have a good count, it's much easier for us than to work with private interests who are going to be much faster at finding a solution for us around additional camping options in the area, because clearly the city, it would take years for the city to set up a campground or consider a place for a campground, and we'd have to have discussions around that. But we might have private entities that are interested in providing that in the area. But it would be helpful if we had a count first of the number of vehicles. And then, separately, we still have to deal with all the individuals who are unhoused living in their vehicles, which I think our law enforcement does a good job of now, but we have to be mindful of that. And we have to consider whether or not there's a city parking lot somewhere in the city that would be a good alternative where we can direct people in the meantime. So,
Thank you, Councillor Cook.
Thank you.
And moving on, we don't have any presentations today. We have new business. I'm sorry, we already did Section A. Section B, Lafayette Road, request for RRFB at crosswalk near Greenleaf Avenue by resident. And the sample motion is move to refer to staff for evaluation and report back.
So moved.
Second.
So moved, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
C, Marcy Street, concerns regarding speeding between State Street and Pleasant Street and crosswalk and intersection safety at Court Street by resident. Sample motion move to refer to staff for evaluation and report back.
So moved.
So moved.
And
Second.
I've actually got a tiny bit of discussion on this. The resident reached out to me and mentioned that the telephone poles have all been hit by side view mirrors. So I went down in the morning, I walked the route, and I could see on all the telephone poles where the side view mirrors have been hit. Now that's a very challenging, narrow road that's quite old, way before cars were thought of, but I just wanted to add that extra component about the damage to the telephone poles along the route.
That's been there for 50, 60, 70 years. That's an ongoing, Peter, problem. I mean, Newcastle's the same way.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Old business, Bartlett Street, report back on mini roundabout at Thornton Street by DPW staff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so we had continued to monitor speeds and volumes at the circle, and we've collected it. We had the camera out there for a while, but we did have other uses for it as well, so we couldn't keep it out there the full time. But speeds at the roundabout for vehicles coming out of the roundabout. Last time we reported they were doing 16 miles an hour on average, 19 85th percentile. Northbound speeds coming through the circle was average speed of 14 and 16 85th. So on the most recent data we collected, we have seen the speeds increase slightly. It's now up to from 14 miles an hour on average to 15 miles per hour on average coming through the circle. So and the 16 to 18 on the 85th percentile. So vehicles are going slightly faster through the circle as they get used to it. That's the straight through movement coming up Bartlett and going to Dennett Street. And then we moved the speed recorder up to another pole closer to Dennett Street to see what the speeds are coming out of the circle. And there we saw that average speeds are 19 miles an hour. So between coming out of the circle at 15 and then going up to 19 as they're approaching Dennett Street. But then they're slowing down again as the stop sign at Dennett Street. So we haven't.
Avon calling.
I shut my phone off.
So that's the information on the speeds has increased slightly, but we're still watching the videos and seeing for the most part it's working well. People are able to make the left turns around the roundabout. You just have to drive it through the proper track through the circle to make the left turn. So we're seeing vehicles with trailers do it. It's not easy for everybody, but it is possible to make the left turn through the roundabout. So
I did see that on the last month's agenda, you posted a whole bunch of links to the videos as well as how to use a roundabout and other roundabout data that had been requested, I think, during public comment at the previous meeting.
Yes. Our Bartlett Street project page on the DPW's website does have that information, links to instructional videos on how to drive these and current other data that was requested for.
All right.
So we'll add this other data to that page as well.
And then go ahead, Mark.
Eric, can you explain the bigger picture for the public?
Certainly.
This is what, three things happen on Bartlett as part of that whole project.
Yeah.
Do you have a timeline on that at all?
The Bartlett Street, we have a project to reconstruct Bartlett Street from Kate Street intersection up to Dennett Street. And that work will include underground utility upgrades and then also streetscape sidewalk improvements as well with traffic calming measures. So while the roundabout doesn't affect the speeds on the rest of Bartlett Street right now, the rest of the project will, which is in design. And this project is going to inform us of the path to take at the intersection, which is just a piece of the overall Bartlett Street project. We've had Bartlett Street, we've seen volumes. People are still coming up Bartlett Street to get to Woodbury, to Rockingham Ave, and to get onto the Turnpike northbound. They're doing that to avoid the bypass where you have the two traffic signals, one at Borthwick, one at Coakley, and then the circle itself. Not a desirable route. A lot of gridlock on that section. People are using Bartlett Street to Woodbury to avoid that area. So the traffic calming measures that we've implemented, including the roundabout on Bartlett and the speed bumps on Woodbury, are all due in part to the problems that we're seeing on the bypass. The traffic is not going out Hodgson Way to get to the bypass not to the degree what we want. We want to see more traffic out of the neighborhood. Don't use Bartlett Street as a cut through. Go out Hodgson Way to the bypass. But we are working on other projects to improve the bypass, such as removing the signal at Coakley and Cottage. We've applied for a grant with the state to look into that, and the state has looking at the circle as to replacing the traffic circle with something, but that's just trying to get into their 10-year plan at this point, so that's still a long way off. In the meantime, we're doing these traffic calming measures on Bartlett and Woodbury to try to address the cut-through speeding.
So for the public purposes, there's more to it than an I like versus I dislike.
Yes.
And if the public could just look at a bigger picture,
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't think there's any action.
I just wanted to say a question about the trucks on Bartlett Street. Many people commented on that. What's the scoop? They're still using Bartlett despite
we still
no truck
see
traffic.
a few occasional trucks. We are working with the state to try to get more signage out on the bypass or on 95 to say no trucks on Woodbury Ave, because we can't go out and put the signs on the bypass ourselves. So trucks who are just following the GPS are coming off the ramps on Woodbury and then realizing that there's no trucks allowed on Woodbury. So we really have to get to the trucks before they come off that ramp.
Okay, so this is a work in progress.
Yes, we've submitted a proposal to the state as far as the signage that we're looking for, and we're waiting for them to review it and get back to us.
Good. I think that's important.
Mm-hmm.
Erica?
I think it's possible, though I don't know how, but I think DOT might know, like ways to contact Google and Waze and let them know that something has a truck prohibition.
Yeah, we have the ability to do that.
I mean, I think that would be worth it to help. It's worth a try.
I understand that approach, and we have reached out to them, and we
Yeah.
have made that.
Okay,
But we
great.
can do it again.
Just in case that's, I mean, if,
No, it's they've been put on notice.
great.
Just give each of us their phone number.
Yes.
That's what we can do.
I made that,
Fine, you can go for it.
I made that comment one
And-
time on Banfield.
Director Rice, do we need any action at today's meeting, or are we?
On Bartlett?
Yes.
No, not at this point.
Okay, so there'll be no action. We're going to continue to monitor it and get updates from DPW as the project is ongoing. And so, old business item B, Middle Street, report back on 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I believe that was reduced from 30 miles an hour. Sample motion is move to approve permanent change of speed limit to 25 miles per hour and install speed feedback signs in each direction.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I'll just point out, the speed limit was reduced a few years ago, but it didn't go through city council final approval. So this is just bringing it up so that we, again, make it a temporary condition officially, and then we can bring it to city council for their 3 readings.
Okay.
Eric, will this be included in the omnibus that's coming forward?
No, it will not. I don't believe so.
Okay.
'Cause
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Informational. I don't think we're going to have the monthly accident report from police unless one of some other staff members is going to present. Why don't we wait until next month to present 2 months at the same
Sure,
time?
I can't speak to it. Sure.
And Woodbury Avenue temporary speed cushion installation update. I think this one a lot of people are interested in.
Yes, so the speed cushions went in on, it was the 22nd of June, a Thursday. These are our crews. We installed them ourselves. We purchased materials. That was about a $8,000 worth of materials to put in the 6 speed cushions. And so this is a picture of the final. The signs were only temporary because they need to be dig safe. That's still a work in progress, so we'll get those out. As mentioned, an advance warning sign would be helpful. We've been measuring the speeds out here between the 2 speed bumps before and after the installation. And we've seen, without the speed cushions, average speeds were 30 miles an hour in this section. And now with the speed cushions, it's down to 20 miles an hour. So it's made a significant drop in the average speeds in this section, which leads us to believe that we've got these spaced correctly. They're the right dimensions, because those are things we can tweak if we don't see the speeds doing what we want out there. So this is informing us going forward. If it continues to be a success, we had proposed to put, I think, a series of 8 of these, just 2 here plus another 6 up the road, about every 400 feet. As mentioned, once you get a couple hundred feet away from these, people tend to pick up speed. So really, in order to keep the speeds in the 25-mile-an-hour range, we really need to have a series of these installed. And if it is, these temporary ones do not stand up to snow plows. They need to be removed for the winter. The idea is to next year, when the road gets repaved, that we would install permanent speed cushions made out of asphalt as part of the roadway.
Any questions from the committee? Erica?
2 questions. One, the permanent speed cushions would have the same design with channels in them, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then, as you did with the mini roundabout where you measured speeds a month later after people kind of acclimate, will you do that again?
Yes. Yeah. The initial speeds here are only presented, just the week after, so people are still getting used to it. So we are continuing to monitor speeds right now.
Any other committee discussion?
A quick question for the chief, whether you've had a chance to run your vehicles through the area, and how's that gone, if you have?
So, yeah, we have run through, and it's a challenge for our folks, and they're not very popular for the guys that operate apparatus.
Are they able to straddle it?
Depending on traffic, yes. But again, oftentimes, right, people don't necessarily pull all the way over to the right. They don't yield the right of way, which leads to the trucks having to move out more into the center of the road and then trying to get the right approach angle, which doesn't always line up. That's right. I mean, it's.
I guess what I'm thinking is, can we work with Eric to the angle to shift it to get into the travel lane so that you're not having to make that jog?
Yeah, I'm not. That's a great discussion we can probably have, but I'm not sure. You'd probably be better at figuring that out than.
Yeah. They're movable, and
Yeah.
that's the whole purpose of them, is so we can figure out what works best.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, moving on. C, Suzanne Drive speed bump installation update.
Yes, looks like tentatively they could be installed tomorrow with 2 locations out on Suzanne Drive. This was proposed and approved last year as part of the roadway reconstruction in that neighborhood.
And I believe that was to hopefully reduce the cut-through traffic that's trying to beat the light.
Primarily, yep. I mean, we're seeing more, the issue really there is cut-through traffic more than speeds, but in putting one right near the entrance, so when you're on Route 1 and stuck in traffic and saying, hey, that's a road I might want to cut through, no, you'll see the speed bump and dissuade.
All right, and then informational, I think maybe Director Fletcher has a 15-minute parking space utilization update, or is that you, Eric?
Yeah, that's me. I just wanted to let you know that we are up video monitoring the 15-minute spaces along State Street. This is part of the request that came in a while back. There's 2 spaces in front of Richardson's Market, another space near Pleasant Street, and there was a request to move one of those across the street for another retailer. So now that it's peak season, we've collected some data in the spring, and now we're also looking at peak season to see how much those 15-minute spaces are utilized. And we'll be reporting back at a future meeting on what our findings are. So far, they're no any surprises. I don't anticipate making any changes, but we'll keep monitoring and see how they're being used.
Great, thank you. And moving on to miscellaneous. Mary Lou.
Well, you know I'm going to comment on Congress and Maplewood, and I did write to the city manager and the mayor, and I CC'd Andrew after hearing Peter Harris at a city council meeting, and I do think that those seats and the Jersey barriers need to be moved back maybe 10 or 12 feet because it is not safe at that intersection. So I'm not sure how the city is going to go about this. If you address it directly to the owners of those two restaurants or through city council, but I think it is important to make a change at Congress.
I do believe the EDC is looking at that, and they're coming up with rules that will probably see a change in the future. But you know, I know some people would like to see a change today, but we have to study everything and
Right.
then
I
make a
just
change.
think that the city council has the jurisdiction to make a change in that, to rescind some of that. So.
I think one of the other intersections where there's a similar issue is on the corner of Penn Hollow and Daniel, on the right-hand side there, where you have the 2 outdoor dinings that sort of come together from Massimo's on Penn Hollow, and then you have the on Daniel Street you have the Cafe Von Sollen and the press room. There's a lot of shrubbery that extends up there as well.
No.
But again, I think if we're looking at rules, then we can uniformly apply them.
Yeah, we had hoped to make those changes for this year, but we were unable to. A question I had, and I can't recall, we used to put the bike corrals on that intersection in front of where the press room is, because that's normally a loading zone, and then in the summer it becomes bike corrals. Mm-hmm. Are the bike corrals back there or not? I don't recall.
They're currently on the McIntyre sidewalk across the street.
Should we consider putting the corrals there to prevent its use as a loading zone, or do you think it's 6 of one, half dozen the other?
We can look at it. I think the concern is blocking sight distance, putting
a truck
stuff there is not going to necessarily improve it. Restricting, enforcing they're not supposed to be using that as a loading zone.
Yes, I agree.
It's just a matter of staying.
Yeah, it was moved during construction at that intersection, but if we're seeing trucks blocking sight lines, parking at that corner, we could move them back there.
Yeah, well, why doesn't staff take a look at that?
Mm-hmm. Okay, because I think we had them there in previous years, but Steve?
That's just one of my concerns. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but if we do pull these things back and create these kind of awkward dead spaces on the pavement, trucks will start using them. Maybe it's an opportunity. My soapboxes, the moped thing, not happy increasingly how I see fellow moped parkers using sidewalks. I'd love to see those on the street, but if we create these spaces, let's think of proactively the best uses for those spaces, because if we don't deal with it proactively, people will start using it in ways that we don't intend. So just be cognizant of the neutral spaces we create.
Is there any other miscellaneous?
One I will mention is at the intersection of Congress and Islington and Maplewood, we now have video detection for traffic. So we have the capability of monitoring it more closely and seeing what's happening.
Okay.
Is that controlling the signal,
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Because I think I've noticed that improvement at the signal.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's great to see.
Yep.
Did you want to speak at all to the CIP? All right. I think if there's no other miscellaneous, we'll adjourn the meeting and have some cake for Harold's birthday.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.